and fiends, and welcome once again to another edition of the Ministry of Horror. I'm your host, as per usual, Tez, and we are back doing a live show on twitch.tv/Tezius, Tezzrus. It feels like quite a while since we've done a little live show. We have done a pre-recorded show last week, but prior to that, I fell ill, and that sucked massively. But we still managed to get a recorded show out when I felt a little bit better. But I guess the last time we streamed would have been doing some gaming. We played... I keep forgetting the title. It's Still the Deep. Something is the Deep. We played that because that's on Game Pass on Xbox. Outside of that, I haven't actually done that much gaming recently. I mean, that's a lie. I played a few hours of Baldur's Gate 3 the other night, so I have done actually probably in one evening about a fortnight's worth of my usual kind of gaming, just because I tend to dip into FIFA or UFC 3, I think is what I've got installed on my PlayStation. I tend to just sort of dip in and out for 20 minutes, half an hour here and there, but I was playing for a good 2.5, maybe even close to 3 hours the other night. It was great fun playing that. But yeah, Still Wakes the Deep. Thank you, Eddie. We've got Eddie in the chat. We've got Fran in the chat as well. Hi guys, hope you're all doing well. But outside of that, I did manage to get to the cinema. So we have two films that we're going to be reviewing on this evening's show. One was the cinema trip, one was an Amazon Prime trip. One was an Amazon Prime selection and viewing. And those films are, for the reviews later on, a film called Underground from 2023, which is currently available on Amazon Prime. It's a found footage film. You'll hear my thoughts and my score on that a bit later on. And also Longlegs. I was going to try and do an impression there, but I am terrible at remembering the exact words for the quote. So, and also, no way I could do Nicolas Cage's voice. Something like, "Oh, here's the almost birthday girl. I seem to have put my long legs on." So it's something like that. I mean, he does it a lot. And that was creepy, just in general. But he does it very, very, very creepy in that. So I won't go too much further into Longlegs, but we will talk about that a bit later on at the top of the show. No featured presentation. I pontificated on discussing the Ty West Maxine trilogy, but I really feel I need to rewatch X and Pearl, and I loved both of them, but I haven't seen them for a little while, and so I'd kind of like to give them a rewatch. I mean, Maxine, I saw at the cinema a couple of weeks ago. I'd like to give them another watch. But yeah, I guess since doing the last live show and touched on it briefly on a pre-recorded show, finally finished the old AAT accountancy qualifications, the final of which had gone on for a number of years. Vix in the chat, I volunteer as tribute to watch those with you. Oh, thank you. The number of those studies have been going on for a number of years, so that is finished. I'd kind of thought, I should take a little bit of a break because it had been really tough. It's been tough on and off. But in terms of the last few months, I have worked really hard, on studying. So it has taken a bit of a toll. But I am a glutton for punishment, and also advancement of professional career and all that stuff and opportunities. So I'm jumping into the next qualification, which is chartered accountancy. Early days of application, so there's loopholes and there's things that have to be reviewed and all that malarkey, but starting the process with that. So non-horror related, but yeah, I'm going to end up doing more studying. But it's worth it in the long run, in terms of career and money, all that stuff. So it's very important. But yeah, I will probably try and have a look at some point next week at any new games on Game Pass and get back into doing a horror game stream. Maybe continue Still Wakes the Deep, because that was pretty decent actually, pretty creepy. So, and I feel that we've only done the first hour or so of that. It's going to get creepier, hopefully. But yeah, no new games or anything. It's been quite quiet gaming wise. In terms of like horror TV, there's not really so much. I would say if you have Prime, do check out some of their selected channels. So currently, the ones that I've earmarked to look at and see if they're worth it, MGM Plus have a 30-day free trial period, and then after that it's like £4.50, £5 a month. But they've got a month free, and there looks to be some good shows and films like in terms of horror on there. Also, Studio Canal have a 30-day free period. So yeah, I'm kind of looking at seeing which one to do a 30-day free trial on, because no doubt I would then forget after the 30 days and then get charged £5, which £5 is £5 at the end of the day. But in terms of horror content, they've got some good options. I looked at doing Arrow again, but I can't get a free trial because I've already previously had a free trial. And I think in America they seem to be getting quite a few new films on their Arrow player. When I had a look at the Arrow player on the Prime channel in the UK, it was a lot of the classic horror films that I either already own or are on Shudder, and I pay for Shudder. I mean, there's nothing new on, and Shudder's going for a quiet period again, as is usually the case. Nothing new on there, but I do like being a Shudder customer. So yeah, nothing new in that regard. Yeah, that's kind of everything caught up on. I probably am forgetting things because I've just got a terrible memory. But yeah, I hope everyone has been well. I hope you've been enjoying lots of various horror. Obviously, with the cinema, there's a few things that are coming out recently. Maxine, Longlegs. I don't know what's next on the horizon for cinema releases for horror, but the good thing that we found after looking into perks with being an accountancy student, or now an AAT member as opposed to a student, is you get some nice discounts. And one of them for me is it's called the Cinema Society. Get discount cinema tickets. We went to a VU cinema, my first time at a VU cinema, and had 25% off the tickets. We previously went to our local Odeon the week before, and it was 2 for £10. So there's great deals out there. And one of the things that can put people off the cinema is, oh god, tickets are 12, 15 quid each. And then if you want to get food there, it's a lot more. Look around. If you're a Prime member, you get 2 for £10 at Odeon per month. I mean, that's £5 each. And if you're smart and have your own concessions, you save a lot more money. Obviously, I understand with cinemas, the brick and mortar buildings, the money is made at the concession stands. It's not made on cinema ticket sales, but it's made on concessions. But still, it's extortionate to spend £15 on soda pop and popcorn. Ridiculous. Not that I'm advocating bringing in your own food, but it's not against the rules. It's not against the law. You don't have to sneak it in like you used to back in the day. Anyway, without further ado, Ghouls and Fiends, I think it's time that we just jump into the news. This is, as I say, pretty much every show going to be a fairly condensed one. I also really wish I had my fan turned on in here as opposed to the Ministry of Horror sign, because it is a scorcher, but I have a feeling the fan would be a bit noisy on the microphone. And I do need to reiterate that I need to set something in the calendar where I've already got the okay from 2 guests, and I need to just confirm dates, because they had given me dates, and I think those dates are now passed, to have 2 guests on to do another horror face-off show. We did one last year. It was a lot of fun with Crimson Mel and Olas Carter. So watch this space. We are going to have specialised episodes again coming soon. Just been busy. So anyway, without further ado, it's time for the horror news. This is the news. Oh. This is God. That was very thirsty. Okay. Just typically while recording a show, I've had some message pop up from my dad. No idea what that's about. Jesus Christ, there's always some worry when it comes to family. There's always some worry. For God's sake. Anyway, we don't have a list of new films releasing this week. I'll refresh the page, but maybe it's just a quiet week on new horror releases, which it does seem to be. So let's start off with something I watched a bit earlier today. Alien Romulus final trailer makes the Alien franchise terrifying again. This comes from John Squires at BladeDiscussing.com. With advanced tickets now available for purchase, 20th Century Studios has released the intense final trailer for Alien Romulus, opening exclusively in theaters August 16th, 2024. From director Fede Alvarez, who did Evil Dead and Don't Breathe, the film will be available in IMAX, Dolby Cinema, 4DX, ScreenX, and formats everywhere. New trailer's out now. The trailer is loaded with nightmarish encounters with all the franchise's most iconic monsters, including facehuggers, chestbursters, and of course the big guy. Alvarez's take on the franchise brings vibes of both Don't Breathe and Evil Dead, and it looks to feature the confined suspense of the former and the brutal terror of the latter. In Romulus, while scavenging the deep ends of a derelict space station, a group of young space colonizers come face to face with the most terrifying life form in the universe. Hayley Spaney leads the cast alongside Isabella Merced, David Johnson, Archie Renault, Spike Fern, and Eileen Wu. Fede Alvarez co-wrote the script with Rodo Sags. Ridley Scott is on board as a producer, the first movie in the franchise to be released by Disney. So I have watched the trailer for this. It does look very good. The only thing is, if people are hyped and don't want to see too much going into Alien Romulus, you may want to skip the final trailer just because it does. It is one of those trailers that does raise the hype levels. It's a very good trailer, but it does seem to show a lot in terms of, particular characters with facehuggers or attacks. It's one of those trailers where it shows a lot of action, but then it does feel like it's maybe given away a bit too much. And that is something that I don't like with trailers. I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't want to be too whatever about a film, then don't watch the trailers. But the hype levels are high. It hasn't made me any less hyped. I do feel this could be the return of the franchise after so many missteps. But yeah, I think I've seen enough now that I don't want to see any more trailers until the film releases. And the fact this is the final trailer should be enough. But yeah, we're about a month away now from not Evil Dead, Alien Romulus by Fede Alvarez of Evil Dead fame. There's quite a few cool moments in the trailer. I do wonder if we will see an Alien Queen, and I think it's just because the Alien Queen is my favourite visual from the Alien series. It's one of my favourite moments in the Alien series is the lead up to and the initial reveal of the Alien Queen, finding out where the eggs have come from. There's deleted scenes in the director's cut of the original Alien, which got released many, many years later, which showed the initial idea of where the eggs came from, but that wasn't canon because that wasn't released in the theatrical release. And so that was then a question that James Cameron could answer in Aliens. And I remember seeing Alien Resurrection when it first came out. A friend's mum rented it for us to watch when we were kids. And I remember being like, oh my God, the Alien Queen's in this. Awesome. And it was just such a damn squib because it was a mutated Alien Queen due to the DNA splicing, and it was on screen for a total of like 2 minutes. So it doesn't necessarily have to return in this. I guess it could be kind of similar to like the third film, returning to the focus to a single alien. But I don't feel that's going to be the case based on the trailer showing a lot of facehuggers, like quite a few facehugger instances. So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I'm hyped for that. I am hyped for Romulus. Next up, we also have some news from the world of professional wrestling. So if people don't know, I was a long-time fan of Ministry of Slam. It was the MOS network where this show started, thus the name Ministry of Horror, MOH, from MOS Network. And I was a big fan of the show, joined as a co-host in the later stages of that era. Then come back as the Wrestling Arena with Bericles. Hope you're doing well, Bericles. And I've done a few shows here and there, but not for a while. So hopefully we do hear the return of the Wrestling Arena, but these things take time, and there's obviously other things going on. So hopefully we have that return. But long little bit of a ramble, but just to sort of say why there's a bit of wrestling news in a horror podcast. And that's because we've got a bit of a crossover here. So I should probably preface, as I usually do, that all of our news comes from bloodydisgusting.com. So, Dark Match trailer. Chris Jericho stars in Wolf Cop director's pro wrestling horror movie. Writer-director Lowell Dean is back with new horror movie Dark Match, set to have its world premiere at the Fantasia Film Festival this Sunday, July 21st. The 80s set wrestling film stars Canadian actors Aisha Isa and Stephen Ogg, with wrestling legend Chris Jericho of Terrifier 2 fame. In Dark Match, a small-time wrestling company accepts a well-paying but too-good-to-be-true gig in the backwoods town, only to learn too late that the community is run by a mysterious cult leader, and their event is now a pay-per-view fight to the death. So, this is... If people haven't seen Wolf Cop, I mean, the budget is low, but they do a lot with the budget, and there's a lot of humour there. I can't remember too much about it. It's been a very long time since I've seen it, but it is a very, very funny comedy horror. I don't know if Lowell Dean has done anything else. I'm pretty sure there is a Wolf Cop sequel, or there was talk of a Wolf Cop sequel. I've never seen it. I'm not sure if it's the same team behind it. But, I mean, Jericho, say what you will about him in terms of the wrestling, in terms of his current run with All Elite Wrestling. But he does have some decent acting chops. He hasn't done that much that I know of, but he had small roles in MacGruber, I should say, actually, MacGruber. And Terrifier 2 is a very sort of small role at the end of that. But, you know, he's one of the better wrestler-turned-actors in what I've seen so far, which admittedly is not a huge amount, very small scenes. But I think he could have a lot of fun with this. I think it just... and also Stephen Ogg, who, if people don't know, his grandfather Tribe, he was Trevor. He's a pretty good actor. He's a pretty good actor. And he did have a role in The Walking Dead. I never know what happened to his character in The Walking Dead, because I dropped off that show, as we've discussed ad nauseum on here. But yeah, I mean, this sounds pretty interesting. There is a trailer. I haven't had time to watch the trailer because this news sort of dropped just as I was preparing the show and just going live. So do check that out. Next up, Kate Siegel must escape hell's grasp in dark comedy Damned If You Do. This comes from Megan Navarro. Hush and the Fall of the House of Usher, which is a show I keep forgetting about. I keep forgetting to watch it. So Hush and the Fall of the House of Usher star Kate Siegel is starring and executive producing the new hellish dark comedy Damned If You Do, and production is underway according to Deadline. The film follows a group of teenage friends who sold their souls to the devil. Naturally, life grants them different paths: a rock star, a tech mogul, and a high-profile activist. Years later, they must rely on an old classmate to try and escape hell's grasp before the contract's deadline on their 25th high school reunion. Written by Ellen Adair and Eric Guild, Damned If You Do marks the directorial debut of Jake Rubin and Evan Metzold. It's not clear which role Siegel will play, but expect the film to have a lot of fun with its soul-selling premise. Rubin and Metzold told Deadline, "We feel very lucky to be working with such a talented and hilarious cast. They make our job easy and bring a wealth of experience to the table that has helped to elevate an already spectacular script. Between our incredible cast and crew, we have formed a remarkable team that truly feels like family, and we are excited to collaborate with this group on our debut feature." Siegel is a frequent Mike Flanagan collaborator and will be seen next starring in Flanagan's Stephen King adaptation, The Life of Chuck, set to make its premiere in September at TIFF. The actor-producer will also be making her directorial debut this October with the 7th installment of the anthology series VHS Beyond, set to release on Shudder. Okay, yeah, so Kate Siegel's a decent actress. I've seen her in a few things. She's obviously a frequent collaborator with Mike Flanagan because they are married, I believe. And also just obviously work together. So I will keep an eye out on this. I haven't seen her do anything bad. She is a star of Hush, and Hush is a great film, of which there is a bit of news on. Well, we can discuss that news next, actually. But yeah, I mean, for the House of Usher, I don't know why whenever I'm thinking of a show to watch or a horror show, it just skips my mind completely. I think it's because the Midnight Club, it wasn't bad, but it just never ever gripped me. And I've tried numerous times to jump back into watching that. And again, I've watched an episode and be like, okay, this is interesting. But I don't know if it's the characters. I don't know if it's the pacing. I never felt the need to finish it. Not even a case of, I've only got 2-3 episodes left, I'll just continue it. And I do get that with some shows where it's just a case of it's on, it's there. But I haven't had that with that. And then for the House of Usher, I think I watched the first episode and thought, yeah, this is fine. But again, I guess, I don't know. Maybe I need to just restart it with a fresh approach and really pay attention. It could well be that it's one of those programs that you put on and then you pick up your phone, and so you're not really taking in what's occurring. That's entirely possible. But yeah, I mean, okay. Damned if you do. Dark comedy coming out soon. And that then brings us, also to Mike Flanagan's Hush comes to digital for the first time in August. Comes from John Squires. It's been 8 years since the Netflix release of Mike Flanagan's home invasion horror movie Hush, but it's interesting to note that the film is no longer streaming on Netflix. In fact, it's currently unavailable to stream or purchase anywhere, and we've also never gotten a physical media release. In other words, you cannot watch Hush at all right now. That's about to change. Hush is set to be unleashed for the first time on digital August 27th by Shout Studios in collaboration with Flanagan, Intrepid Pictures, and Blumhouse. The digital release of Mike Flanagan's Hush will be available for purchase and or rent across all major digital entertainment platforms in the United States and Canada. What about us over here? I remember catching Hush on Netflix, because it did used to be on Netflix here in the UK. And the reason it always stuck with me is, one, it is a pretty good film. It's a decent taunt thriller with a pretty interesting setup. But also during the film, there's a moment when the power gets cut on this house during this home invasion. And literally about 2-3 minutes after it, the flat I was in at the time, in this castle in Ringwood, that had a power cut. Which wasn't that unheard of, because we had a few of those occasionally, I guess due to the area, and if there were power shortages at the main box, it happened. But the fact that it happened not long after a power cut on screen, I remember just being a little bit freaked out, for a moment anyway. But yeah, Hush is a decent film, so it is one to look out for when it is available in your location. I mean, it doesn't mention anything about the UK digital release, but VPNs exist, I guess. So next up in the news, Night Bitch images. Amy Adams may be turning into a canine. So this is from John Squires. Just noticed in the chat, Eddie the Beast has said, in regards to the power cut, it's like yours on Mel's stream that time when we was talking about an exact thing about it. Yeah, that was That was terrible timing. Essentially, we found out what that was. It was the water heater. When that would kick in at a set time each night, it was that. So that, but it just so happened that that occurred while doing the show. Just awful timing. But these things happen. And Fran, the chat, has also confirmed that there is another Wolf Cop. So I'll have to maybe check that out. You know, the first one was fun. Not something where I've had any. Well, I'd kind of forgotten about its existence, but it's a fun film. So yeah, Night Bitch images are available now. From Searchlight Pictures, Amy Adams' movie Night Bitch is coming to theatres December 6th, and Vanity Fair shares several first-look images in a preview piece today. Night Bitch is rated R for language and some sexuality. The darkly comic horror film was directed by Mary L. Heller. Heller describes the film as a comedy for women and a horror movie for men. Vanity Fair editorializes, but really, Night Bitch hits all those notes at once, blending sharp dialogue with improvised chaos, a necessity when your film's second most important character is played by rambunctious 3-year-old twins and moments of graphic body horror. Night Bitch tells the story of a woman thrown into the stay-at-home routine of raising a toddler in the suburbs, who slowly embraces the feral power deeply rooted in motherhood. She becomes increasingly aware of the bizarre and undeniable signs that she may be turning into a canine. Scott McNairy and Mary Holland also star. The movie is based on Rachel Yoder's novel, and Yoder penned the screenplay. So yeah, there's a number of images there. The images don't really give too much away. Certainly no horror-esque images other than, well, they're not horror, just quite a few pictures of her chilling out with dogs and running with dogs. Yeah. Okay. I imagine it's going to be light on the horror. But it's a fun title to say, isn't it? What more can you say? And then finally, The Rock. No, finally in the horror news, and man, this is going to be a condensed show. Terrifier 3, killer new shot of David Howard Thornton's Art the Clown. Director Damien Leone promises that the hotly anticipated trailer for Terrifier 3 is coming very soon, and we're whetting your appetite this week with a brand new official image. David Howard Thornton is back as Art the Clown in Terrifier 3 this coming Halloween season, and the new image shows Art ready to slice and dice a new batch of victims. Terrifier 3 opens exclusively in theatres nationwide on October the 11th, 2024. In Cineverse and Blood Disgusting's Terrifier 3, directed once again by Damien Leone, Art the Clown is set to unleash another round of chaos on the unsuspecting residents of Miles County as they peacefully drift off to sleep on Christmas Eve. Returning cast includes Lauren Levera, Samantha Scafidi, Elliot Fulham, and AEW superstar Chris Jericho, with Daniel Roebuck set to debut as Santa Claus. Makeup effects legend Tom Savini will also appear, with Jason Patric recently joining the cast as well. Jason Patric of The Lost Boys fame. Clint Howard and Tonella Rose, Chris Fox, and John Abrahams also star. Written and directed by Damien Leone, Terrifier 3 comes courtesy of Dark Age Cinema Productions. Blah, 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 blah. So the image, it's Art the Clown with a bloodied mouth holding up a box cutter, and his glove is bloodied, and he appears to be holding something or someone down. Doesn't give too much away, but it does. It's something nasty is about to occur, no doubt. Eddie the Beast in the chat: does this weirdo come back, or does this weirdo keep coming back alive? Yeah, I mean, Terrifier 2 opens with kind of his resurrection from the first film. Terrifier 2 ends, though, and I won't say anything because I don't want to give spoilers away if people haven't seen the film yet, but it's such an interestingly weird way to end the film, and I imagine that is where Terrifier 3 is going to pick up from. It's going to make no sense, but I imagine it's going to be, for splatter and gorehound fans, it's going to be a huge treat, I imagine. If you're squeamish, though, you're probably just going to want to steer clear. Just, save yourself the mental anguish and steer clear. Anyway, Ghouls and Fiends, that is it for the horror news. that was the news. Oh, 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 oh.
You hang up on me again, I'll cut you like a fish, understand?
Gotta take those opportunities to hydrate. Boom. Boom. So, we still have time to go to reviews. Bosh. And the first up in today's reviews is Underground. Okay. When I'd started this film, I think I watched the trailer. I happened to be scrolling, horror films on Prime, because at the end of the day, it's a service I already have. I'm always going to look to see if there's any horror films that pique my interest on a service that I already have, whether that be Sky Cinema, Prime, not so much Netflix, just because Netflix has been terrible for new horror for a while, but you get what I mean. I do need to check out Tubi, though. I need to see what platforms that app is on, but Tubi is now available in the UK, thanks to Fran for the heads up in the Discord. I watched the first part of this. I watched it briefly a little while ago, the first 20 minutes or so. I then continued the film a couple of days ago. And when I went to open the film on Prime, I couldn't help but notice that the star rating on it was 1 star. Now, normally, on films on Prime, you either don't have a star rating or it's 3 stars upwards. And the hint can be if you then click on the film or select the film, and then it has an IMDb score, which is normally quite helpful. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to make up your own mind and not just trust review scores. Because also IMDb scores for films that I've done are all terrible. Not to say that the films are great, but you know what I mean. They obviously hold a special place in my heart. But it normally gives you a decent enough barometer. I mean, I guess it really depends, because you get some TV shows now, or some films, but more so TV shows, that get review bombed even before they've come out. And I always just think that's kind of pathetic. Like, you're entitled to your opinion if you don't like something and you have a legitimate reason, like a constructive. If you can provide constructive feedback, then that's better. And if ultimately, I give things low scores because it's based on my enjoyment. But I wouldn't go, this thing hasn't come out yet, it's going to be terrible, it's going to be 1 out of 10. Because that's ridiculous. Watch it and make up a decision based on what enjoyment you got out of it or what you liked about it. But don't just go, oh, this is whatever tick boxes of things that I can hate are, so I'm just going to crap on it before it's out. I'm thinking more so about like The Acolyte, because that gets a lot of hate, and I've watched a few episodes of it and thought it's fine. I'm not a big Star Wars head. I don't know a lot about the lore outside of the main films. I haven't really watched any of the TV shows. So I'm not going to get offended if there are things changed. But a lot of the hate seems to be over just aesthetic things, which... But then there's people complaining about the canon being changed and lore being changed, and I guess it just depends on how tight you are to that franchise. But for me, don't care really, so it makes no difference to me. But anyway, that's a long rambling aside to the fact that this didn't show an IMDb score on Prime. What it did show was 1 star out of 5. So Underground is a 2023 film from director and writer Lars Jensen, also written by Charlotte Dawn Potter, starring Charlotte Dawn Potter with Caitlin Barber and Mike Toll. Or Mike Ito, I don't know how you pronounce it. After a wild bachelorette party, a group of young women find themselves trapped in an underground bunker complex. A disturbing finding turns their night into an absolute nightmare. Will they be able to escape from this vast concrete maze? Okay. I don't really know where to start. And the fact that I don't know where to start is probably going to give you an idea on how much or how little I enjoyed this film. The opening with this kind of like police press conference seemed fairly interesting. set it up kind of nicely. This is a found footage film, I should say. And what this film does highlight is that not every found footage film is... It's not that easy to do a good found footage film, essentially. It relies on trying to set up this unique camaraderie with the Bachelorette group. But the acting is particularly poor in places. And when your film is found footage, so you're spending a lot of time focused on the minute interactions between people, they've got to be believable. They've got to come across as having genuine levels of relationships with each other. And this one just felt quite forced. And by the time that we get them to this underground bunker complex, which my attention span was starting to lapse quite a bit as to how they actually got into there, but I did pay attention through the remainder. It's just so by the numbers in terms of moments when something otherworldly is occurring, and you've got the real sort of cheap digital damage effect where it goes all kind of like staticky, and that's a trope that is part of found footage, especially found footage from the last 10-20 years, of course, because of how things are filmed, not being on film but digital. But it's just by the numbers. It's typical. It's cheesy. There's no moments of genuine terror, and the moments that do try to have it just look crap. Like, there clearly was a bit of a low budget with this. That's all can really be said, and that shouldn't be a negative. You can do a lot with a low budget. But there needed to be something more to this film. It was just quite threadbare. There aren't really any stakes. I at no point cared if they got out of the maze or not, because it was just really quite a poor use of the environment. There's not really any positives that I can give to this, and it's all neatly tied up with a bow at the end. It's just I struggled to find where the horror was, other than the attempts with the otherworldly events occurring in the tunnels at various times. But there was just no real stakes to it. It sucked, really. I can't highlight any good on it. I'm giving it a 1.5. I'm giving it 1.5, and I know that's incredibly low. I don't know if that's the lowest film score I've ever given on this show. I really should have kept a record. I really should have kept an audit trail of the scores that I've given films in the past. This was crap. This was crap. Eddie in the chat saying, so more that sort of horror, what is not a horror but is supposed to be. Yeah, there was nothing. There was nothing of terror in this at all. Even, as I say, the moments where you're meant to think, oh god, shit's hitting the fan. It was almost like, I mean, the setup was completely different, but it was almost like, if you look at like Gunjin, I can't remember the title, the Haunted Asylum film, the Korean Haunted Asylum film, sort of like Gunjin Haunted Asylum. If you look at the moments of Up in the Ante and the terror in that versus the Up in the Ante's terror in this, it's night and day. And I think there's a moment in that with like a demonic hand or like a ghostly hand approaching someone's face. And when that happened in Gunjin Haunted Asylum, you're almost holding your breath while you're watching it, because it's just so tense. And you're thinking, what the fuck's going to happen here? What is going to happen here? When it was occurring in this, it was just eye-rolling, because it's so cheesy, this like elongated fingered demonic hand doing this, like, obviously if you're listening you can't see, but this shaking approach to the face with that kind of really generic cracking sort of sound to show something demonic, where there's just that really sort of, just by the numbers sound effects work. It was, 1.5 out of 10. I didn't like it at all. Give it a watch on Prime for free. Next up, the final review of today's show, Longlegs. We are talking about Longlegs. This is a 2024 American horror thriller film written and directed by Osgood Perkins. Stars Micah Monroe and Nicolas Cage, who also produced the film through his Saturn Films production company. Cast also features Blair Underwood, Alicia Witt, Michelle Choi Lee, and Dakota Dolby in supporting roles. The film follows an FBI agent tasked with tracking down an occultist serial killer responsible for murdering multiple families across America without having been physically present in the crimes. So, this has a Wikipedia page, so I can talk a bit about the plot, but I really don't want to talk too much about it, because I feel it's best to watch it not knowing a lot about it. But, as this is a review, we have to talk about some elements of the plot, but I don't want to go too much into it. So, 1970s Oregon. A little girl with a Polaroid camera follows a mysterious voice behind her house, where she is approached by an erratic, almost pale man who appears to have had severe deformities caused by cosmetic surgery. He exclaims he wore his long legs due to his imposing height before wishing her a happy birthday and suddenly leaning in at her. Jumps to the 1990s, newly recruited FBI agent Lee Harker displays inexplicable intuition in the field, such as correctly assuming a nearby home houses a murderer. Through testing, she is theorized to have possible clairvoyance. As a result, she is assigned to a decade-spanning case of a series of brutal murder-suicides involving families throughout the state of Oregon. In each incident, the father murdered his wife and children before taking his own life, and left at each crime scene is a letter with cryptic satanic coding that is signed Longlegs. The handwriting belongs to none of the victims, despite no forensic evidence of any home invasion or outside parties present. So, this is night and day with Underground. I've been quite hyped to watch this because the marketing for this has been incredible. I remember hearing about this through the news for the show a little while ago and thinking, okay, a Micah Monroe horror. Yeah, she's a great actress. Nicolas Cage in another horror role. Yeah, I mean, he's been going through a real horror renaissance in the last few years. Obviously, Mandy is one of my favourite films. Kind of just up there. I was about to say of the last 10 years or so, but it's just incredible. So sign me up. And the fact that this was a thriller horror, and we just don't get that many thrillers seemingly anymore compared to the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. So I was very much up for this. It is a weird film, but in a good way, in very much a way that I like a weird film. And it is a slow burn. It takes its time digging its claws into you. And it's one of these things that when I'd watched it, I thought, okay, I came out of the cinema and I thought, yeah, I mean, that was good. It was weird. It was different. There are certain moments of kind of blink and you'll miss it or hidden in the background, satanic imagery that I thought, oh, that's a nice touch. I like that. And the story does go some odd places. Like, it's really signposted by Micah Monroe's incredibly reserved role as Lee, where something just seems a little bit off with her because she's just very much, I think it's playing up because of her ability to kind of see things or know things, that she's just quite withdrawn and very not very personable with people. She's kind of just very focused on the work. And you then contrast that with Nicolas Cage, who you don't see that much of, which is obviously on purpose, but he is just unhinged, really. It's not like he's going around like a maniac murdering, but just his personality and motivations and whatnot, as we find out throughout the film, is just incredibly, incredibly creepy. he just is on another planet. That's not to say there's aliens in this film. Just don't read too much into that. The music is very, very good at building the sense of dread, but with a feel of indie in there. Like there's moments at the very start of the film with the opening title where it's kind of got this indie rock, like kind of garage rock soundtrack in places, which I wasn't expecting. But that's then contrasts with the moments of just dread, just building dread that just puts you on edge of something horrible happening. I don't really think I have any kind of negatives to say about this. I guess the only negative, which I wouldn't say is a negative of the film, but the potential area for backlash is the marketing. The marketing is incredibly effective for this film, but it did sucker me in a way that doesn't usually happen when it came to saying scariest film of the decade. This is the new Silence of the Lambs for the 21st century. And normally when I hear those things, I become a bit more reserved because I think, I've had plenty of films, like there was a film called Veronica or Abigail. Not Abigail, but I think it's like Veronica on Netflix that had this hype of us, the scariest film ever, the Spanish possession film. And I watched it and it was like, it's fine, but it's not very memorable. It certainly wasn't scary. And so for a long time when I'd hear these things, this hyperbole about scariest film since The Exorcist or whatever, I'd think, okay, no. I'm reserving I'm tempering my expectations because I know that I'm going to be disappointed if I go in thinking that. And I wouldn't say that I was disappointed in watching this, but the marketing and the review hype for this have been saying that it's terrifying, it will leave you traumatized and all this stuff, and it's just incredibly upsetting and all this. And it's not. It's a great film. It has some great moments of dread, and the performances I think are spectacular in this. I really did enjoy the story. Even the ending, I mean, it's not, it goes through some twists and turns, but they're not unpredictable. You can see some of it coming if you're looking, but then there's other things that you won't necessarily notice, like the Satan is prevalent in this film if you're keeping your eyes open. And I like those little touches, definitely. It's a sort of film where I'm looking forward to giving it a rewatch. I'm definitely going to be picking this up on Blu-ray. Just because I really, it stood out to me. And I tend not to give films straight out of the cinema scores, which is a reason why I've never really decided to do like kind of mini videos or stories or whatever with straight out of the cinema reviews, because I tend to find I need to kind of sleep on things and then just think about it and then start thinking about what I did like, and then it's from there that the train can get rolling. And it can work in a negative way, like, Halloween Kills. Came out of the cinema watching that, and I was just like, yeah, it was good. Yeah, it was good. Yeah, 7.5, I think. But I need to sleep on it. Slept on it, and I'm closer to 6.5. Just because, whilst it had great kills in it, the story just wasn't that good. It had the awesome flashbacks to 1978, but the story and some of the Evil Dies Tonight stuff was a bit crap. So with this, I wanted to sleep on it before coming up with a score, and I think, yeah, you know what? I'm in an hour between 8.5, but I'm going to give it 9 because the more I think about it, the more that I did really enjoy it, and I want to see more of Osgood Perkins, who is the son of the late Anthony Perkins, which I only found out recently. Apparently he's done a few things, but I haven't seen any of them, like Gretel and Hansel. I'm the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House, I've not seen. The Blackcoat's Daughter, not seen. But he is doing The Monkey, which we talked about a little while ago, based on a Stephen King short story, which I'm very excited for. So that is that is definitely something to keep an eye out on. But that brings us to the end of yet another edition of the Ministry of Horror. I'm glad that you've come along, watching the show, listening to the show. This will be going out onto YouTube and podcast platforms tomorrow at some time. If I edit it tonight, it will go on tomorrow morning. If I don't edit it tonight, it will go on tomorrow evening after I finish work. But either way, you can check it out on YouTube, podcast platforms. Be sure to, whatever platform you watch or listen to this on, give it a follow, a like, subscribe, whatever is the relevant thing for your platform. It really does help with the show reaching a bigger audience, which is always nice. Always a nice thing to do. I'm probably not going to be sticking around post show just because it's so goddamn hot in this office. And I'm kind of hungry as well, as is usually the case. But yeah, Underground didn't like. Longlegs did like. That's my main talking points from the show. We'll be back next week with a recorded show, so I'll record at some point in the week, try and put it out by Friday, if not Saturday at the latest. We'll have a retro review returning to that show. I will look at what I have on my retro reviews. Potentially we'll do The Ring 2, because I've got the Ring box set here. Otherwise, there are a few more films in the Arrow release called The Video Store, where we watched Cellar Dweller. That was fun. It was a weird film, but it was fun. We'll have a retro review essentially next week. But have a great rest of your evening or day or whenever it is you listen to this, and I will catch you later. Goodbye.